Thank you. I want to take some questions from Sky News. Jason Farrell. Oh, okay.
Well, is time so hard in Sky you have to share microphones? Have a whip round for Sky.
Just two questions, if I can. First of all, the big party you were talking about at the beginning, obviously you've got this new membership. Last time round, I think it's the same this time round, there will be a vetting process for people who join. And I wondered, as someone who sort of addressed May Day protests with lots of other parties at that address, whether you feel that people from other parties, such as social workers, should be allowed to join the Labour Party, and what do you feel about the vetting process? And secondly, in the interest of transparency and equality, will you be publishing the pay breakdown of your own office?
The membership issue is that anyone that signs up to join the Labour Party or support the Labour Party must support the aims and values and principles of the Labour Party. That's absolutely clear, and they should not be members of or campaigning for any other party. It's absolutely clear. That's what the process is for. I hope the process will be fairly carried out, and that we welcome people to the Labour fold who've come in from other organisations, have come in from other parties. That is what growing politics is all about. And of course, the equal pay audit should be carried out for all employers.
Thank you. The next question is from ITV News. Carl Dinnon. Yeah. Dinnon, okay.
Have you got your own microphone, Carl?
You don't need one.
It was my microphone, it's not taken back.
I love the way the private sector organisations cooperate together. Do you include the BBC in your cooperation?
You've come up with an interesting policy idea today, but the problem is, and this leadership campaign was sparked not by policy differences amongst you and your MPs, but because your MPs just don't really think that you're up to the job. If you win, does that matter that your MPs don't support you?
Look, when we won the leadership election last year, we set out a series of policy changes, and we've done our best to carry those out. Crucially is the economic policy objective, which John McDonnell has been leading on, and I think pretty well everyone will concede that because of the work of John and our team, the whole economic debate in Britain has fundamentally changed. That is what happens. We've changed politics in Britain. I'm coming to your question. Don't worry, I'm not avoiding your question. I promise you that. But you've got to let me answer it. It's a deal, okay? I tried to appoint a very broad shadow cabinet last September. And I think everyone would concede that I did appoint a broad shadow cabinet. I made some changes 3 months later. And then straight after the European Union referendum, a number of colleagues unfortunately decided to resign from the shadow cabinet. And I had to appoint a lot of new members to the shadow cabinet. I want to thank those members that were appointed, some of whom had only been in Parliament for a year. And as an inveterate political watcher, I'm sure you will accept that they have stepped up to the plate and done a fantastic job. I say to Labour MPs quite simply this. I've been in Parliament a very long time. I've seen lots of leaders. I've seen them come and I've seen them go. There is a huge amount of talent on the Labour benches. We are part of, but not the entirety, of the Labour Party and the Labour movement. And I hope those that may not agree with me politically, may not even like me personally, I find that hard to believe, but there are some people apparently who don't like me, I hold out the hand of friendship to them all, because come September, when this election is done and dusted, there will still be a Tory government in office. There will still be grotesque levels of inequality in our society. There will still be whole parts of this country that are left behind Britain. It's the job, it's the duty, it's the responsibility of every Labour MP to get behind the party at that point and put it there against the Tories about the different, fairer kind of Britain that we can build together. And I appeal to them to work together to put that case forward, because we owe it to the people that founded this party, that support this party, the 500,000 who give their money and their time to help this party survive and strengthen and grow of the kind of better society we can put forward. I hope they will recognise that and come on board. I have an ability to very conveniently forget some of the unpleasant things that are said, because it's not worth it. It's simply not worth it.
next question's from the BBC. BBC? Okay.
Hi, Vicky.
Just to follow up on that, the reason you're here is because most of your MPs have decided it's not that they don't like you, they don't think that you will ever be Prime Minister. Aren't you at all concerned that so many of your MPs from across the breadth of the party?
Well, I wish they hadn't. I wish they were all on board, and I wish they'd all played their full part in the economic debate yesterday when John McDonnell was really putting it to the government. I wish quite a lot of things. I asked them to just think very, very carefully about this. We have a government that is creating worse divisions and poverty within our society. It's their job to get behind the party and campaign against this government. Do they think ill of me personally? I'm sure they don't. Do they think politically different to me? In some cases, possibly yes. But I think they will recognise that this leadership election is about having that political debate, but it's also about showing loyalty to the party and the movement. And so I hope they'll get on board.
About being Prime Minister and being in government, that's what they fear, is that you can't be the next Prime Minister.
Why am I so frightening? If they fear it, why am I so frightening?
They want you to be Prime Minister, but they
Yes.
don't want you to.
Okay. Well, listen. This party is going places. This party is strong. This party is capable of winning a general election. And if I'm leader of the party, I will be that Prime Minister.
Okay, the next question's from Norman Smith, BBC. Norman Smith.
Norman Smith?
Are you Norman?
No, he's not Norman Smith.
Oh, sorry.
Hang on, this can't be an event without Norman Smith present. Can we hold it till Norman Smith arrives?
Okay,
Can we wait till Norman Smith arrives?
Okay, the next one's from the Mirror. Ben Glazier, sorry.
You called for a new kind of politics, Jeremy. Just wondering what you made of Diane Abbott's attack on Owen Smith this morning on the radio for him having a shot before he went to Parliament.
It's nothing to do with you.
That's part of a new kind of politics.
Well, do you know what? I don't listen to the Radio 4 Today programme every day. I'm sure I should, but I don't always do so. I understand, because I've followed it up on social media, she was critical of Owen Smith's involvement in the private healthcare sector before he came into Parliament. I hope Owen will fully agree with me that our NHS should be free at the point of use, should be run by publicly employed workers working for the NHS, not for private contractors, and that medical research shouldn't be farmed out to big pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer and others, but should be funded through the Medical Research Council as a way of developing those drugs and not allow the private pharma companies to become over-dominant in the way the NHS provides things, and that generic medicines are much cheaper than patented medicines and should be encouraged. Think of what happened in South Africa over antiretrovirals and the way they fought a very brave campaign for a long time in order to get affordable antiretrovirals, which have saved lots of lives. So I just hope that, and I'm sure he will, Owen will come fully on board on the idea of our NHS being totally public and publicly employed people running it.
Next one from the Telegraph. Ben Riley-Smith.
Oh. Hi.
All the signs said that you were the front runner in this race. If you do win, clearly what about Owen Smith is that you were that, and then rule out back to mandatory inspection.
Sorry, I couldn't probably hear it.
Sorry. Two quick questions. One, if you win, will you offer Owen Smith the post in your shadow cabinet?
Yeah.
And two, can you rule out back to mandatory inspection?
Well, Owen Smith was in the shadow cabinet until 2 weeks ago. And he came to see me to say he was very happy in the shadow cabinet and wanted to stay there, and then left the meeting and resigned, which was a slightly odd thing to do. But he, of course, he's very welcome to come back, and I hope he would, because that's got to be the right way of doing things.
Selection.
Oh, mandatory reselection. At the moment, selection takes place when there is a trigger ballot system where a constituency party decides whether or not it wishes to have a full selection process, and that trigger ballot system pertains. There's going to be, as you know, a total boundary review, which will be, the first report will be out this autumn, and it will finally be implemented in 2018. If this Parliament runs to full term, then the new boundaries will be the basis on which elections take place. And in that case, there would be a full selection process in every constituency, but the sitting MP for any part or any substantial part of the new boundary would have an opportunity to put their name forward. So there will be a full and open selection process for every every constituency Labour Party throughout the whole of the UK, and we'll know the first draft of the boundary review this year. But there are issues surrounding the boundary review, one of which is the electorate has gone up very significantly since last December, when the cut-off date was December the 8th for the registration of voters to decide the broad size of the new constituencies. There's been a huge increase in the electorate since then, mainly through registration work done by many parties, including ours, but also for the EU referendum. I think this is a time when the Electoral Commission and the Boundary Commission should look again at the figures being used for the new boundaries. Otherwise, we're going to usher in new boundaries that are already unfair and unequal from the very beginning. The boundary review must reflect the makeup of our population. Young people, mobile populations, black and minority ethnic populations are disproportionately underrepresented on the electoral register. I want to change that, and I urge the Boundary Commission to reflect very carefully on what they do before they come up with their new proposals.
And the last question from Peter Walker from The Guardian. Hi.
During all the talk about what a new Labour government will do, you kind of talked about the victories in the by-elections and mayoral elections. You've not as yet mentioned the opinion polls, which show the idea of the Labour government doesn't actually seem realistic at the moment. Do you think the polls are wrong, or do you think that they'll change?
I think that the polls will change and will improve for us. We did gain a considerable amount of support between May 15 and May 16, and in the local elections in England the results were not uniform across the whole country. We did very well in a number of southern councils where your paper and many others were predicting we would lose many seats, and indeed others were predicting 300 losses. There were 18 losses. It's a big difference between 18 and 300, and we have gained support. I think that once this leadership election is over, many will realise the importance of the message we're putting forward, of the kind of decent, equal society we can create, and the way in which we can say to families, whatever their economic situation, are you comfortable with so many people being homeless? Are you comfortable with levels of inequality in society? Are you comfortable with the waste that poverty is on the lives of so many people? Support will grow for us. This Conservative government has nothing to offer other than tax cuts at the top end, corporate tax cuts, and a continuing cycle of despair and decline in the ways it funds local authorities, particularly in the poorest parts of Britain. You could overlay a map of poverty in Britain with the depth of the cuts being made by this government, and you would see the same map. A Labour government would do it the other way round. Okay, thank you very much.
And that's the end of that event in central London, with the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, pledging to tackle inequality and injustice as he launched his fight to hold on to the Labour leadership. His campaign, of course, coming after more than 180,000 people signed up to become registered supporters in the last 2 days, meaning that they will be able to vote in the leadership contest. Listening to that speech and also asking the first question was our political correspondent Jason Farrell. Jason, what did you take from that?
Well, as we've come to expect from Jeremy Corbyn, total defiance. He believes that he is going to win this contest and he's going to go on to fight the next general election. That was his message, and I thought the most interesting answer there was to Carl Dinan's question, actually talking about his hand of friendship that he was going to hold out to those MPs, those rebel MPs who have defied him. The big questions in the room around whether he could pull the party together. Many from both sides have said that this is a battle for survival. Certainly on the rebel side, they believe if they don't win, that could lead to the breakup of the Labour Party. And some on Jeremy Corbyn's side believe that if he doesn't win, that could lead to the breakup of the Labour Party. So what Jeremy Corbyn is calling for is for whoever wins to get the unity of the party behind them. He believes he can do that, and it was quite interesting to see him start his speech by talking about his electoral achievements, certainly with regards to the mayoral elections in London, Liverpool and Bristol and Salford, where Labour have had victories. He believes they did reasonably well too in the local elections, although many believe Jeremy Corbyn should have done better. And then he talked a lot about how Labour had attacked the welfare reform changes that the Conservative government were trying to bring through, and how that attack was successful. It should be remembered, though, that a lot of the success came from the House of Lords, not from the Commons, in order to overturn the Conservative welfare reforms. But he was reminding people that there were a lot of people in the Labour Party who were initially uncertain as to whether to attack the Conservative government on those £12 billion worth of cuts to tax credits, which you'll remember was a big U-turn eventually by the Conservative Party. And I guess what he's saying is, will a new leader have the tenacity that he has and the differential between Labour and the Conservatives? And then he went on to make his main point of the speech, which was talking about discrimination, particularly in the workplace against women, but saying it was also a discriminatory system against young people. And obviously he's here at UCL, the College of London, where there are a lot of young students who will very much appreciate this message. So the battle lines are now drawn. We're going to hear from Owen Smith later today. But Jeremy Corbyn, defiant, he believes he can get re-elected and that he can reunite the party after that happens. There's a long way to go before then, though.
Indeed, that's our senior political correspondent, Jason Farrell. Thank you very much.